All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a visual journey through what, I think, one of the most emotionally raw and personal letters in the entire Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 1. We're going to walk through it verse by verse, and the goal here is to build a kind of mental map, something that helps us find real purpose, even in our toughest times. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever been through something so difficult, so painful, that you just couldn't see how any good could possibly come out of it? I think we've all been there, and that's the exact question that sits right at the very heart of this chapter. It's a question the Apostle Paul isn't afraid to tackle head-on. Okay, so like any letter, this one starts with a greeting, but you're going to want to pay close attention here because even in these first two verses, there's so much more going on than just a simple hello.
So, verse 1. You can almost see it, right? Paul, this veteran apostle, dictating his thoughts, and his younger companion, Timothy, is right there with him. And who are they writing to? The church in Corinth, a bustling, chaotic city. This really sets the stage for the deeply personal message that's about to come. Then we hit verse 2. Paul wishes them grace and peace. Now, this is so much more than just saying hi. To really get this, imagine a warm, golden light. That's grace, this incredible unearned gift. And then this deep, profound calm. That's peace. And picture it flowing straight from God to the people in Corinth holding this letter. It's not a wish, it's a powerful, active blessing being sent their way.
And right away, this blessing of peace and comfort leads us straight into the absolute core theme of this chapter. It's this incredible, transformative idea that you could call the comfort cycle. It's this amazing loop where the comfort you receive becomes the very comfort you're able to give.
Okay, verse 3. Paul praises God, calling him the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort. To make that really stick in your mind, picture a loving father who finds someone just shivering in the freezing cold. What does he do? He wraps a thick, warm blanket around him. That's the image, that deep, personal, active comfort Paul is talking about. Then, in verse 4, we see why. The scene just keeps going. The person who just got the blanket, who is now warm and safe, sees someone else shivering, and without hesitating, they take that same blanket and wrap it around the other person. You see? The comfort they got wasn't just for them. It was always meant to be passed on. It's like this divine pay-it-forward system.
All right, now verse 5 takes this whole idea even deeper. I want you to picture a big, old-fashioned set of scales. On one side, you've got suffering. Let's imagine it as a heavy, tangled crown of thorns. But then, on the other side, a flood of golden comfort from Christ comes pouring in, and it's so abundant, so heavy, that it just slams the scale down on its side, completely outweighing all that pain. And then verse 6 shows us what this looks like in practice. Think of a line of dominoes. Paul's suffering is the first domino to fall. But here's the twist. Instead of a path of destruction, it sets off this amazing chain reaction that actually builds something. It leads directly to the encouragement and salvation of the people in Corinth. And finally, verse 7 just ties it all together beautifully. The image for this one, picture two mountain climbers roped to each other, scaling a treacherous cliff. They're in it together, sharing the struggle, sharing the risk. But because they're connected in the climb, they're also guaranteed to share that magnificent view from the top together. And this is where the letter suddenly gets very personal. Paul shifts from talking about comfort in general terms to sharing a story from his own life. And it's an absolute gut punch, a moment where he literally faced death. So in verse 8, Paul does not hold back. He gets brutally honest. He talks about a trouble he faced in Asia. And to really feel the weight of his words, just picture a man literally being crushed under an impossibly heavy pile of rocks. The weight is so great he can't even breathe, and he's completely given up hope. That's what he means when he says he despaired even of life. He was at the absolute end of his rope. Then comes verse 9. The scene changes. Now imagine Paul in a dark, cold prison cell. You hear the sharp crack of a judge's gavel, and he feels that final, terrible weight of a death sentence. It's a moment of total, complete helplessness. And that, right there, is the crucial point. This experience forced him to stop relying on himself, to stop trusting in his own strength, and to put all his trust in the only one powerful enough to raise the dead, God himself. And then in verse 10, wow, the entire scene just flips. Those prison bars don't just get unlocked. They shatter into a brilliant shower of light. The crushing darkness of that cell is just obliterated by this glorious sunrise, a perfect picture of God's miraculous, impossible rescue. But here's the thing. Paul knew he wasn't alone in this. In verse 11 tells us why. Picture this, countless threads of pure light, each one representing a single prayer from the church in Corinth, all rising up. And they all converge on Paul, weaving themselves into this incredible net of support that literally holds him up during his darkest hour. His rescue, it was a team effort.
Okay, so now the whole tone of the letter shifts. After being so vulnerable, Paul has to switch gears and address a problem. It seems some people in Corinth were actually questioning his integrity, so he has to defend himself, and he starts with his own conscience.
In verse 12, Paul lays out his defense. He says the only thing he can really boast about is his clear conscience. And the picture for this is someone looking down into a perfectly still, crystal-clear lake and seeing their own reflection without any distortion at all. It's just pure, simple, godly sincerity. He keeps this theme going in verses 13 and 14, saying, hey, what you read in my letters is exactly what I mean. It's like an open book. There's no hidden meaning, no secret code. What you see is what you get. He's being completely transparent.
And all of this brings us to the root of the whole misunderstanding. See, Paul had changed his travel plans, and some people took that to mean he was flaky or unreliable. But Paul's about to ground his reliability not in his own plans, but in the unshakable reliability of God.
So in verses 15 and 16, Paul basically says, hey, remember my original plan? He had intended to come see them twice to give them a second benefit. You can just picture an old map with a clear, direct route drawn on it. His plan was totally straightforward, and it was all for their benefit.
But things changed, and that leads to his powerful question in verse 17. He's essentially asking them, and us, when I made that plan, was I being careless? Do you really think I'm the kind of guy who just says yes, yes, and no, no at the same time, changing my mind on a whim? He's putting it right out there. This is where Paul makes this absolutely crucial contrast. Think about it like this. On one hand, you have human plans. Picture a weather vane just spinning wildly in a storm. It's yes one minute, no the next, totally dependent on the circumstances. But on the other hand, you have God's promises, and that's like a massive, unmovable mountain. It doesn't shift, it doesn't change. With God, in Jesus, the answer is always a solid, reliable yes. And then, verse 20 delivers the knockout punch. For all the promises of God in him are yes, and in him, amen. Just let that sink in for a second. The mental picture for this one? It's an official, unbreakable royal seal being pressed into hot wax on a sacred document. It's done. It's final, secure, and absolutely guaranteed. Verse 21 just keeps building on this idea of security. Picture this. You and Paul are being anchored, tied with these thick, unbreakable ropes to a giant, immovable rock labeled Christ. You are established together, totally secure. Then verse 22 gives us two more incredible images. First, God seals us. Imagine a king pressing his own signet ring onto your heart, marking you as his own. And then he gives us the Spirit as a guarantee. This is like a down payment. That same king placing a valuable deposit right in our hearts, a promise of the full inheritance that's still to come.
So what was the real reason Paul changed his plans? Verse 23 gives us the surprising answer. It was actually an act of mercy. He stayed away to spare them a difficult, painful visit. The image here is a loving parent who is about to bring correction, but instead chooses to act with compassion. And he wraps up the whole chapter in verse 24 by making his role crystal clear. He says, look, I'm not here to lord it over your faith. And the final image of the chapter is beautiful. It's Paul not standing over the Corinthians, but working right alongside them, shoulder to shoulder in a garden, as a fellow worker helping their joy to grow.
So what a journey, right? We've gone from the depths of suffering all the way to the height of joy, from a literal death sentence to God's unbreakable yes. And as we finish, that central idea, that comfort cycle, leaves us with a really important question to think about in our own lives. When was a time that the comfort you received in one of your darkest moments became the exact comfort you were then able to give away to someone else?